Alrighty, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Week 10 live stream for the 2024 fantasy football season on this wonderful Friday night. Over the course of the next hour plus, we're talking anything and everything fantasy football related. Whether it is a starter sit question going into this weekend's games, whether it is a potential waiver wire pickup question because you have players that are injured and designated out, you've gone ahead and moved players like Brian Robinson Jr., Michael Pittman Jr., to your injured reserve spot, and you have to go pick up a player and start them within your flex. Anything that's related, whether it's a trade question, be sure to include your scoring format regardless of what kind of question it is, whether it is a standard half PPR, full PPR league. The more context you provide, the easier it will be for me to answer that question. Again, answering any and all questions, regarding fantasy football. So let's get right into it, shall we? The first question that was sent in via Super earlier today was from Juice Vino. Juice, thank you very much. Juice had said, "Sup, Andrew, in a full PPR, one wide receiver, one flex format, we have Cortland Sutton, Xavier Legette, Rico Dowdle, Rashad White, and Jawan Jennings. So out of those available potential options, I think you could go about it in one of a couple ways. But I think the best plan of action is Sutton Jennings. I could potentially entertain the idea of going Sutton alongside of Rashad White. But for right now, I probably lean in the direction of Jennings, considering that great matchup against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers secondary. So that's the direction I'm going to lean in as of right now, Juice. Thank you very much. All right, let's hear. Craig Newman in the live chat sending the question, said, trade Pickens and Pollard for Neighbors in a 12-team half PPR. I think it's very much so important I get a clear understanding as to the rest of the depth on your team in regards to running back. If you're giving away a player of the caliber of Pollard, and again, we have seen Pollard be extremely valuable thus far this season. If you're going to give him away, you must have incredible running back depth in order to be able to recoup the loss of value there, because that is a huge loss in terms of rest of season value. But again, if you do have enough running backs, like you've got another 3 studs, maybe 4 studs on roster, you somehow accumulated the Thanos gauntlet of fantasy teams, and the players that you have across the board allow for this kind of trade to be made, then sure. Otherwise, the more context that will be applied, if you don't have as much depth, if you only have like 2 other running backs outside of Pollard, I probably would tell you to keep Pollard just to have, depth for potential injury sake or, the upcoming bye weeks that are potentially going to plague you. All right, let's see here. We had also a question that came in from Levant. Nothing attached. Oh, never mind. I see it. Levant says, I just traded Puka Nacua for Cup for Cup, as Puka's injury scares me too much. Yeah, I have no issue with that at all. Yeah, sounds good to me. Yeah, I think the overall value between these two players is going to be relatively similar the rest of the way. Again, once they're both fully healthy, they're both going to be dominating forces within the offense. And obviously, Kupp looked fantastic last week, at a full healthy rate. So yeah, they should be great. I have no issue with that trade. Supreme Bean sent in the question. Thank you, Supreme. Says in a PPR, start 3. We have Kupp, we have Smith, we have Hopkins, and we have Pickens. Cool. Out of those available options, the 3 that I would start this week would be Kupp, Hopkins, and Pickens. Those would be the 3 that I prefer to play. Earlier today, we got more of an indication that Marshawn Lattimore will not be playing for the Washington Commanders this week. He was just traded earlier this week. There was a chance that would be the case, but I'm feeling far more confident in the overall potential upside for Pickens in the absence of Lattimore, as he has been one of the best cornerbacks for the last couple seasons, and obviously I wouldn't want to play Pickens against him. So as of right now, Kupp, Hopkins, Pickens, Smith will take the seat, especially in a matchup in which they're expected to blow out the Cowboys. Goddard comes back, and even without Goddard and or AJ Brown in the lineup at times, very little utilization for Smith on a consistent enough basis for me to trust him in comparison to the alternative options you have here. Supreme, thank you. We move on to Young Motivated, who says in a full PPR, Lad McConkey, BTJ with Mac or Jawan Jennings. Okay, so when you say Mac, is that Christian McCaffrey, or who is Mac in this scenario? McLaurin? So yeah, MAC, who's Mac, Young Motivated? The more context you provide regarding that, the easier it'll be to answer that question. I appreciate it. We had a question that came in from Nick Q, 3435, who says in a 10-team full PPR, I'm currently 6-3. Offered Barkley and Evans for Kupp, JT/Laporta. I have wide receivers Jamar Chase, JJ, Kupp, Olave, Reed, Downs. Running backs are Gibbs, Mixon, JT, and Connor. Tight end is Otten. Do I do this? Yeah, I will take Barkley and I will take Evans rest of the season. Laporta, in my opinion, trade fodder. He is irrelevant to you. Jonathan Taylor, the value of Jonathan Taylor, Kupp, Barkley, Evans. When Evans is back, he is more valuable, or if not the identical value of Kupp once he's back healthy after week 12, which again isn't very far away. But the separation of value between Barkley and JT is so significant, then yes, I am 100% in on the Barkley side. And the rest of your team is so stacked, like it doesn't matter if you make this trade, but I think this just helps you in the long run here, Nick. Young OG sends in a question, says in a PPR, I need 1 running back and 2 flex. We have BTJ, Dell, Chuba, Najee, and Devontae. Cool. So as of right now, okay. So if we have to play one of these running backs, let me go pull up my rankings really quickly just so I have a referencing point. I've kind of messed around with my rankings a lot this week, probably more than I have in the last couple weeks, because there's just been more and more information that I've kind of at least filtered through that gives me either more or less confidence regarding a specific player. So it's filtered out a little bit. Let me go back to your question here. So you have Chuba Hubbard, Najee. Okay, so we need either one of those two. Okay, so with Jonathan Brooks potentially coming back again, they currently have him listed as questionable, which makes me think there's a chance that he doesn't play. So in the event that we're in a situation in which he does not play, I would play Chuba Hubbard on Sunday morning in Germany. Now, if in fact he does play, at that point, I'd be confident enough just pivoting to playing Najee Harris. So it'd be Najee if Jonathan Brooks is active. Otherwise, Chuba if he's inactive. And then within your 2 flex spots, I mean, for sure, Dell has to play, especially with the questionable nature of Nico Collins. Outside of him, between Devontae Smith, BTJ, I'm not even too comfortable with either of those two. So I probably just play Dell, Chuba, and Najee, actually, now that I'm thinking about this. I could convince myself to play Devontae Smith over Chuba Hubbard in this circumstance, but I won't. I'll just play Dell, Chuba, and Najee in this circumstance. Thank you. Let me see if Young Motivated had sent in a follow-up in regards to, okay, Mac Jones. Okay, understood now. So Mac. So it's PPR Lad, BTJ with Mac or Juwan Jennings. So basically, are we playing Mac Jones or are we playing Juwan Jennings in a full PPR? I'd probably rather play Juwan Jennings. I truly do believe that Mac Jones will throw a plentiful amount of interceptions to where it will not do you any services. Mario in the chat says, is Christian McCaffrey a start in week 10? Absolutely. Yeah, listen, if Christian McCaffrey is not a start this week, then there's no reason to have him on roster. You're shipping him away because there's nothing that you can do henceforth. Like, okay, just think about it this way. Christian McCaffrey, having played no games this season, there's still a question mark regarding him, but if you're not going to play him, you might as well trade him because if he doesn't look good, you're screwed at that point and you'll never be able to move him. Otherwise, if he goes off, then you traded him for the correct value anyway. You know what I mean? So that's how we'll go. Let's see here. Scrolling down. Where are we at? All right, let's see here. Manjor, 97, says, just traded Breece and Tracy for Bijan. Okay, interesting trade. I have Mixon, Connor, and Irving. Did I do good or no? I think it depends. I would say you're probably fine because Bijan is so valuable in this circumstance, but I think Breece Hall / Tracy's okay, so it depends on how many running backs you could start with in a given week. If you can only start 2 running backs in 1 flex, then I'm perfectly fine with the move because probably rest of season, you will only be playing Bijan, Mixon, and Connor. The only issue is that this, upcoming weeks, Bijan's going to have a bye week and Connor, and losing that depth, I mean, I guess, Irving's also going to have a bye week, so you're going to definitely need to go pick up some sort of running back off of waivers in order to fill in your roster in that, in the meanwhile. But if I'm looking just purely towards the fantasy playoffs, I have no issue with this trade. Kiwi sends in a question, says in a half PPR, if I had to drop somebody permanently, who would it be between Josh Downs, Rome Odunze, Tillman, and Keaton Mitchell? It would be Keaton Mitchell without a doubt in my mind. Also, do you answer dynasty questions? I can answer dynasty questions, but I will objectively tell you, I do not play in enough dynasty leagues. I play in literally one. I do not play in enough dynasty leagues to be able to outright tell you the correct answer because some of the trades that you guys are like proposing where you're like, all right, I'm taking a 2027 fourth and a 2026 early second and a 2025 early first. And I'm like, okay, at that point, there's just too much to think about long-term that I'm probably not the right person to ask. I'll be honest. I'd rather just answer questions for week 10 and or for the rest of the redraft season. Catacomb sends in a question. Says, okay, Pitts or Njoku rest of season. Also, Waddle or Quentin Johnston at the flex. Between those two this week, I'm still going to lean towards playing Waddle. As for, especially with Tyreek Hill not practicing today, I think there's definitely something to be said about that. But in regards to Pitts and Njoku rest of season, I'll probably lean towards playing Njoku for the rest of the year. Thank you. Fibonacci sends in a question, says, trade Neighbors, Hunt, and Dowdle for Gibbs and D-Hop. Team consists of Chase, A.J. Brown, JSN, Bijan, Tracy, Brooks, Keaton. Pacheco is on my IR. Okay, so you'd be trading away Hunt, but you'd be getting Gibbs in. Yeah, I'll take the deal. That's fine. I'm cool with that. In the long term, you get more. Yeah, in the long term, I'm fine with it. That's cool with me. Thank you. Akshay sends in a question, says, in a full PPR, pick one between Adunze Lamb and or Marvin Harrison, and why? Thanks. I'm assuming that's a start question for this week. Between the three of them, I think the play has to be CeeDee Lamb. Again, not only is he the most talented, but amongst all three of the receivers, he is going to get himself the overall biggest target share within his own respective offense. Additionally, he's going to get the most targets because he's still the number one of a Dallas Cowboys offense that is, again, a pass-first offense, taking on the Philadelphia Eagles of all defenses on top of it, where, again, it's going to be a negative game script for the entirety of the contest. Dallas, if in fact at any point are winning, it would be a surprise. So CeeDee Lamb's probably in line for somewhere between 10 to 15 total targets within the upcoming performance, especially considering he already has a rapport built in with Cooper Rush back in 2022 when Dak Prescott missed a pretty considerable amount of time, about 5 weeks there, with a broken thumb that he broke off of someone's helmet in that Tampa Bay game in that month. It was a Thursday night football game to start the 2022 season, if I'm not mistaken. But, throughout that span of time, CeeDee Lamb was pretty solid with Cooper Rush. I mean, if I even go back to, let's see here, CeeDee Lamb, let's go and let's see. I've mentioned it in a half PPR earlier this week in regards to like what kind of numbers he was putting up back then. And again, this is a superior CeeDee Lamb than what we saw back in 2022, obviously, right? The player itself is significantly better. And I would assume that, Cooper Rush is also a better football player by now. But in those weeks, 15.1, 22.7, 21.7, 10.0, and 12.7. So not in a single week did he have less than 10 points. And he still had the upside of, yes, he's probably going to be like a 13 to 15 point play, but he has the upside of 20 plus points if he's able to find the end zone in these circumstances. The targets, 11, 12, 8, 8, and 10. So again, pretty good overall opportunity. So that's why we're going Lamb this week. Joshua Delgado sends in a question, says, in a 12-team half PPR, do I start Eckler or Pollard? Thanks, bro. No problem. I haven't adjusted Eckler's rankings enough, but let me see where I had Pollard earlier this week. I'm going to assume that I'm probably taking Eckler there, especially with Tyjae Spears being active. Let me see here. So if I go to my Patreon rankings, so Pollard was there, and Brian Robinson was there. If I move, I'll probably roll with Eckler this weekend. That's probably the direction I'm going to go in, especially with Will Levis playing quarterback this week. That doesn't make me also excited about the Titans offense in general. Like if it was Mason Rudolph, I think I'd feel that much more confident in the potential of the offense being, I guess functionable rather than what they're going to be, which is just a dysfunctional offense turning over the ball. Hopefully that's not the case, but again, we'll have to wait and see. But for right now, I probably lean towards playing Eckler in that circumstance. Akuma sends in a question. Says, hey Andrew, nicely asking question in the chat. All right, sounds good, Akuma. Let me see if I can find it. Akuma, where is your question? Let's see here. It says, in a 10-team full PPR, what's going on, bro? After seeing your Hidden Gems video, should I pick up Taysom Hill and flex him over Dowdle or Waddle? Waddle is starting to piss me off. In a full PPR, I wouldn't be able to suggest that. I think I understand the thought process. I think it's a little bit risky. Well, you know what? Is it risky? No. I think, if anything, Taysom's probably a safe 10 points in a full PPR. If that's what you're okay with, like, hey, I'm going to get 10 points and I'm going to be done with the week solid, then that's what you go for. Otherwise, I prefer to play Waddle because I know that Los Angeles Rams defense really isn't great. And of course, last week Tua looked fantastic against the Bills secondary. I'd only imagine he'd be able to tear apart our secondary here in LA on Monday night. So I'm going to lean towards Waddle, but if you want to play Hill, I honestly don't mind it because, again, he's going to be implicated for receiving upside. He's going to have the rushing, touchdown upside available to him with all the other running backs outside of Alvin Kamara out within this offense. So I don't mind the play. I just prefer Waddle ever so slightly. All right, I had seen some people had commented. I had answered their questions, and then they had like a follow-up. So let me scroll back up here and see who specifically. Levant had said it was a half PPR, by the way. Yeah, that's not a problem. That's perfectly fine in that scenario, Levant. Let's see here. There was also a follow-up from, let's see if I can find it. I know I saw it earlier. I don't know where it went though. Fibonacci, there you go. Says, for more context, no Bijan or Chase in week 12 and trying to compensate by adding Gibbs and DeAndre Hopkins, who will both be available. I'm in an 8-man full PPR, currently 6-3. Yeah, I mean, look, the context isn't really even necessary in this situation. I could see the vision ultimately just off of looking at your team as a whole. So yeah, I don't have an issue with it. I think it's a solid trade in your circumstance at all. I mean, overall. Let's see here. Mikey says, I don't know if you answered already, but even with Tampa Bay's sucky offense, will Juwan not pop off instead of Hunter Henry? Well, here's the thing about Juwan Jennings, right? Juwan Jennings in a full PPR in comparison to Hunter Henry, Mikey, the difference between the two is that Juwan Jennings will not be exposed to as much of an opportunity share of targets in comparison to Henry, especially with Henry taking on Chicago's defense that can't stop opposing tight ends. Like what we've seen in the last 2 weeks from Hunter Henry is 7+ receptions in both games. So when we're talking about a full PPR and without any touchdown upside, Hunter Henry is probably implicated for 6-7 receptions, 60-70 receiving yards. He's going to be a 12 to 14 point player just passively. If he scores a touchdown, he's 20 points. The idea of Juwan Jennings having to compete with McCaffrey, whatever other running backs get touches, Debo, Kittle, Brock Purdy's rushing upside, and then maybe even Pearsall if he has a bigger workload than we initially anticipate, and Christian McCaffrey's receiving upside on top of it, there's just so much competition in itself there that I'd rather just lean towards the safety and the most recent consistency of Hunter Henry in that circumstance, Mikey, which again, we talked about that last night. But I think that's a little bit more of a kind of clarified answer, hopefully, in your circumstance. All right, let's see here. We had a question that came in from Andy. It says, if Hall doesn't score double-digit points this week, which language has the most comprehensive arsenal of gratifying curse words to scream? Happy birthday, by the way. Thank you very much, Andy. I appreciate it. You know what? That's a great question. I am not much of a linguistics connoisseur, so I couldn't specifically tell you which language that we're going to go ahead and just use the arsenal off of. But here's the thing. If Breece Hall doesn't go off and doesn't score double-digit quote-unquote fantasy points, I'm not going to even blame him. Like, I'm not going to curse, Breece Hall's name. I'm cursing the offensive coordinator's name. I'm cursing Aaron Rodgers' fucking name. Like, that's who I'm going to blame. That's really going to be the issue. The offensive line's going to hear it because I know Breece Hall's a stud. They just got to give him opportunities. So, hey, let's hope that they go ahead and hand it off in his direction because really the Cardinals defense has played well as of late. But, I mean, if you give Breece Hall the opportunity of 5 to 6 targets, the guy's going to go for 20 points, much less 10. All right, let me see here. Thank you again, Andy. I appreciate it. All right, let's see here. What do we have in the chat? Finley Morris says, would you take Levis with one arm over Mac? Am I playing Will Levis over Mac Jones? No, I'm not playing Will Levis over Mac Jones. I'd rather play Mac Jones, honestly. Next question. Joel Tucker says, I traded Josh Jacobs, Marvin Harrison, and Geno Smith for Jaden Daniels. Did I do too much? I'm 5-4 in a 10-team league. I would venture to say the answer is yes, mainly because of a couple factors, right? You're giving away a top 15 running back. You're giving away a top 15 quarterback. And you're giving away some sort of maybe top 30 wide receiver. Again, it varies depending on what week it is for Marvin Harrison as to whether or not he's going to actually show up. Getting Jaden Daniels is solid, assuming, again, you're 5-4. You have to go ahead and prepare for another quarterback in the coming weeks on top of it because, again, he's going to hit a bye week. So not only are you going to have to replace Jaden Daniels in the not too distant future, but then you've also lost so much depth at running back and wide receiver potentially that it could hurt you in the long run. So we're hoping that you've built a complete monster squad, that this doesn't hurt you, but I think you may have given up just a little bit too much in this scenario. Let's see here. If you had said that you had traded all that for Jalen Hurts, I wouldn't have even blinked because there's no bye week and there's no concern and there's no risk of you losing a week in the absence of that player and all those that you gave up for it, because you could just take an L in that 1 week and that could be the reason you lose the season or don't make the playoffs or something like that. Fed Excellent said, hey, Andrew, please help in a full PPR. Pick 2, flex Pearsall, Stevenson, Harrison, and or Rico. I'm not going to play Pearsall just yet. I kind of want to wait and see what his overall usage is going to be within the offense with all of the pieces back. So Stevenson's for sure the number one play, taking on the Bears defense. Stevenson, again, he's been very much so touchdown dependent, but hey, I'll take it. If he's going to score again, so be it. And in between Harrison Jr. and Rico Dowdle, I don't know how. Look, that Eagles defense has played so well that I'll probably just lean towards playing Harrison and just hope for the best. So I'm going to go Stevenson and Harrison there as of right now. History Today says, would you trade Brian Thomas Jr. for DK Metcalf? I would. Yes, I would. I'd be absolutely willing to do so. Schnabel says, okay, so that's something else. Cameron Kaplan says Ridley has Levis. Yeah, that's gonna be tough this weekend. Yeah, I told you guys on Wednesday's video, and I think I mentioned it either yesterday or the day before on a live stream. If Levis was gonna get the confirmation that he's gonna start, I am not interested at all in playing Ridley as a top 30 wide receiver, like where I had him ranked on Wednesday. He is significantly going to drop in terms of the overall ranking because I just do not trust Will Levis to be able to get the job done. Now, has Will Levis in the past been able to support a wide receiver one by the name of D-Hop last year? Absolutely. But those were in very seldom occasions in which D-Hop was scoring touchdowns and getting 9 to 12 targets in those games. All right, the Lakers are up 14-8. I'm curious, does Austin Reeves score his 2.5 points? I've already put an underdog play on it. I want to see if he's already scored his points. Let's go to NBA.com really quickly while we're sitting here. I need to just reference point this because, he's hit it every single game except for the one that I suggested, and he has already scored 5 points. So he already did it in this game. What a classic. I'm telling you, the one time I suggested it this past Monday, hey, take Austin Reeves higher than 2.5 first quarter points. He's done it every game except for that one fucking game. Absolutely egregious. It was a coup. Something happened. As soon as I went public with it, it traveled. And it got to Austin's ear, and they told him not to score in the first quarter. Anyway, Rogo sends in a question. Thank you, Rogo. Says, my dude, we still going Seibert? No, probably not. No, because they signed Zane Gonzalez earlier today. I told you yesterday, right? As soon as on Friday they sign or put somebody on their practice squad, we are getting rid of it and we're going after Jake Moody. So in your situation, Rogo, if Jake Moody's available, go pick him up. Again, so for those of you who have Austin Seibert, the kicker of the Washington Commanders, he has been questionable with an injury all week long. I said yesterday that if in fact they were going to sign a kicker to the practice squad, that means that they're going to probably bench him this week. Now, this is how the practice squad regulations and rules work. You can elevate a player from the practice squad a maximum of 3 times over the course of a season before you have to sign him to a full contract and make him an active part of the roster. So in this situation, they're probably going to utilize Zane Gonzalez for the next 2 to 3 weeks at most, and then we'll get the return of Austin Seibert. Now, it could be a 1-week fix. We'll have to wait and see, though. Let's see here. Miguel Torres says, chat, do we think Pickens and Hopkins for Neighbors? Let me know. Also, what does it say? It says also Bijan for Hall and trade. Oh, yeah. Okay, so he's asking everyone else in that overall situation. Andrew Brown says, start Jennings or D-Hop this week. I'd probably start D-Hop as of right now. Again, less competition. Sam Fisher says, any concern with Tyreek's wrist injury? Maybe buy really low on Waddle before news breaks in case it's serious. I don't know how serious it could potentially be. Obviously, he was limited in terms of his overall practice last week as well. So that's something that has been nagging for the last couple weeks. But, look, buying Waddle low is never a bad idea, in my opinion. Especially, again, the offense he's associated with. We know that eventually Waddle's going to be a stud because he has been that every season of his career when healthy with a healthy Tua. Obviously, he's been a little bit slow as of late, but I think he'll be able to get back to his normal routine fantasy points. So, yeah, I don't mind the idea of potentially buying low on Waddle in this scenario. Ish in the chat says, Andrew, Jonathan Taylor over 80 yards or Aaron Jones over 70 yards? I'd rather take Aaron Jones there. Jonathan Taylor has even though like the best way to beat the Bills is to run the ball down their throat, I don't even think that the Indianapolis Colts are capable of doing that. So, yeah, I'd rather just have Aaron Jones in this scenario. Yeah, for sure. Let's see here. Airbender says, hey, Andrew, in a 12-team full PPR, Robinson, Coleman, Pittman, Hurt, Metcalf's on a bye, and I need a flex between Warren, Pitts, Noah Brown, and Westbrook Ikine. Cool. Of the available options, Pitts has to be your starter. He's been the most consistent. He gets the most opportunity share. Westbrook Ikine with a different quarterback, very sketchy. Noah Brown, unless he's catching a Hail Mary, maybe like in a full PPR, he's 4 or 5 catches, 40, 50 yards. So he could be like 8 to 10 point player for sure. Warren, again, he's probably going to either put up somewhere between 8 to 10 points, somewhere like that. But I think Pitts, very safe in the same regard. Similar overall production, but has the highest upside of the group. All right, let's see here. We had a question that came in from Joseph Weintraub. Thank you, Joseph. Very generous. Says, Andrew, I'm back. CD, Neighbors, Aaron Jones, Gibbs, Kittle, and Purdy. I got 2 trade offers. Saquon for Neighbors and Gibbs. Okay. Also received another Bijan for Neighbors and Jones. What do you okay, would you do it? Is it crazy to value Aaron Jones over Gibbs? Okay, hold up. Let's go at this one at a time. So somebody wants to okay. So someone wants to give you Saquon for okay, yeah. This is my only clarifying question because you said you have CD, Neighbors, Jones, right? Gibbs. So that's your team. So someone wants to give you Saquon, someone wants to give you Bijan in these scenarios. I'm keeping what you have. I don't think it's necessary to make these trades because the thing is, if you're trading away Neighbors with, let's say, for example, Aaron Jones for Bijan, yes, you are theoretically getting an upgrade from, Aaron Jones to Bijan, but what's replacing Neighbors in this scenario? That's the question. If you don't have an actual suitable replacement, especially with the downgrade that you're going to get at CeeDee Lamb going forward, I think I just stay as suit instead of making a trade in this scenario. So that's my initial thought process. Now, if you can give me more context by just typing in the live chat what your wide receivers look like outside of CeeDee Lamb and Neighbors, then maybe we can go ahead and extend this conversation and maybe feel more comfortable about making a trade of this caliber. But for right now, very hesitant to do so because I want to keep that wide receiver depth on roster going forward. Angel says, Andrew, send us a guaranteed slip this weekend. Yeah, 1 second here. Let me go ahead. Okay. Let's go ahead. Let's go to live pick'ems. All right. So let's go ahead and throw this up on screen. Let me screen capture this. Oh, you know what? I don't even have to go there. Let's just go here. What am I saying? I'm an idiot. So right here. There it is. Hey, welcome. We're at the Hidden Gems video, guys. Look at that. We transferred. Yeah, this is my favorite one. This is a very, very, very strong one. It's so strong that it's a literal only 2x. It only doubles your money. Or, whatever, it goes up 114 from 100. So if you put $10 on it, you'd win, or technically total, you'd win 14 something back, right? Or not even. I don't even think, my math's wrong. Either way, this is my favorite bet. The other one that I like is this one, right? Purdy, 2 touchdowns. Kyron, anytime touchdown. Sam Darnold, anytime touchdown, or 2 touchdowns specifically. So those are my favorite plays, okay? Football's coming back on screen, flying in the direction, boom, okay. So those are the favorite plays. We mentioned it earlier today in regards to the Hidden Gems episode. Amari Cooper on the thumbnail. Again, we're expecting the breakout. Now, look, I will preface. Last week's Hidden Gems were some fucking monsters. I have never had a Hidden Gems like that in a very long time. I can remember almost every Hidden Gems video I've ever done, and I don't remember another time in which players went off at that caliber. That was some crazy stuff last week. Now, we're going to hope for more success, but expect them to be a little bit more hit and miss because that was a crazy turn of events in that scenario. Joseph Weintraub says, ETN, Taysom Hill, Johnston on the bench. Okay, yeah, you can't make the trade then. You don't have enough wide receiver depth. Okay, we move on to a question that comes in from Fuzzy. Thank you, Fuzzy. It says PPR pick 1. Where is Fuzzy's? Okay. It says Pierce, Mitchell, Coker, Douglas. What else do you have? Tipton, Wilson, Washington, Calvin Austin. I have Tillman, Keon Coleman, Leggett, Wanda Robinson, Diggs, and Ayuk out. Okay, so considering all of the available options you have, pick up 1. Pierce, Mitchell, Coker, Douglas. I mean, it depends, right? Like, if in fact you're okay, so if you're looking into the future and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to need one of these players to fill in for a bye week, then you're going to probably have to pick up a player that has already passed their bye, right? That would be my initial thought. If that is not the case, then of the available that you have mentioned here, I'm probably going to lean in the direction of Douglas. Thank you. YG sends in a question, says JMO or Javonte rest of season. I'd probably, well, actually depends on Denver's schedule. Let me see what they have here. Broncos schedule. I want to see if it gets any easier because the last couple weeks has been brutal. It definitely gets easier, but even in that scenario, I just don't trust it too much. I'd probably rather have the overall services of JMO rest of season, especially in a full PPR. That's the direction I'm going to lean in this circumstance. Thank you. Octavio says Downs, D-Hop, Marvin Harrison, Flex 1. Thanks. Octavio, what's your scoring format? If you play in a half PPR, I'd probably play D-Hop there. If you're playing in a full PPR, It could be. Actually, let me check where my full PPR rankings has downs. Especially with Pittman out, I probably, let's see, where do I have downs? Yeah. In a full PPR, I'm going to take Downs. In a half PPR, I'm going to take D-Hop there. Thank you. Mike says, with Debo questionable, do I start him or Downs? I think I'd still play Debo. Again, he's given the questionable tag because they legally have to present it. If they were not to actually actively say that he was questionable, they would be fined like $500,000 and lose a draft pick, because that's just how the NFL works. The last time a team did that was with Matthew Stafford back in Detroit, where they didn't claim his injury and he didn't practice, and then they went ahead and bonked them with a huge penalty. So anyway, in this scenario, probably just going to play Debo. If he's active, he's in my lineup. By the time we get to Sunday, NFL Week 14, I mean, not 14, 10. What am I saying? The only reason I said 14 is because, yeah, anyway. Continuing on. Let's see. The afternoon slate has San Francisco. No, it's a morning game. And so okay. So they're both in the morning game. They both take place at 10 a.m. If Debo by somehow, some way is not active before the game against Tampa Bay, then of course you play Downs. Otherwise, yes, I'm going to play Debo. Thank you. Joel Tucker sends in a question. Says, thanks, Andrew. Just give context. I have Sam Darnold, Christian McCaffrey, Achane, Gibbs, Dowdle, Puka, Jamar Chase. We'll get Jennings in waivers, Pitts, Njoku, Ferguson. Does that change anything on your thoughts? Okay, let me see here in terms of the prior question. Okay, so considering how much you gave up and what you have on roster, you have Sam Darnold, which again is going to be able to fill in the potential absence there. Christian McCaffrey, Achane, Gibbs. Yeah, okay. Considering the full context of your team, you're fine. But a lot of teams are not built like yours. So a lot of scenarios in which you're giving up that much typically leads me to believe, holy moly, we just gave up the whole farm. But in this scenario, you didn't. You're fine. I don't have an issue with it. Thank you. All right, let's see here. We had a question that came in from White Hammer, who says, I have quarterback Purdy, Mayfield. My running backs are Henry, Mixon, Dobbins, and White. My wide receivers are Lamb, Devontae Smith, DK Leggett. Tight end is Pitts and Andrews. I'm in a full PPR, and I traded DK White and Leggett for Achane and Mooney and Judy. Wow. How did you do that? Teach me the ways, because I don't know how you managed to get Achane for that. I mean, I would have legitimately, I'm not even joking with you. In any league that I play in, DK White and Leggett would have to be sent in a direction just for Achane itself, much less Mooney and Judy on top of it. That's how much Achane's value in my mind is. He is top 3 running back rest of way in a full PPR. So at the moment, congratulations, firm handshakes, White Hammer. You've done it. I don't know how you did it, but maybe you could have a TED Talk and teach everybody. Appreciate it. Jeez, that is ridiculous. All right, let's see here. KB has sent in a question. Says, Herbert, A-Rod, Stafford, or Tua as my quarterback 1. For this week, I'd prefer to play Stafford as your QB1. With Puka and Kupp at a full capacity at home, I feel like it's just far too easy of a potential play. And on top of it, he's getting his offensive lineman back from the injured reserve. He's going to be far better protected. And, the offense with all these pieces back is that much more, productive over the course of the week. So Stafford is the preferred number 1. Number 2 would probably be Tua. Number 3 would be Herbert. Number 4 would be A-Rod, in that order as of right now. Coup over Aubrey. Yeah, look, here's the thing. The only issue and worry that I have with Aubrey is that if this game is not competitive enough for them to consider shooting field goals, I don't know if that's really the calling field goals. I don't know what the actual term is supposed to be for that. But anyway, if they don't feel like field goals are going to be worth it, if they're already down 20 plus points and they're just going to go for it at midfield on a 4th down, I think it lowers the overall potential of Aubrey. So I'd probably rather just play Koo in this scenario. I have him ranked higher as of right now. Justice Reborn says, in a full PPR flex, okay, let's see here. We have Wandale Robinson or Waddle. I'd rather play Waddle at the moment. Nick L says, hey, bro, questions in the chat. Happy birthday, as per usual. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thank you. Let's see here, Nick. Let's see. Where's your question? All right. It says, thinking about dropping Jordan Mason or Laporta for either Taysom Hill or Hunter Henry. I'd drop them both for both. I'm not even joking. I would drop both for both. Band for band, tight end for tight end, running back for tight end. I have Njoku and Christian McCaffrey. No spots. Honestly, okay, well, maybe you don't need both Taysom Hill and Hunter Henry, but technically you could start them both this week. One at tight end, one in the flex. I'd be willing to pick them both up because Hunter Henry's been playing out of his mind, and Taysom Hill's probably going to have another consecutive week here in which he scores a touchdown, to the extent to where He may be valuable enough to trade, but if you believe that your league mates are not very much so trade receptive, then you don't really have to make any moves. You just maybe just drop Laporta for Henry and that's it, and then just keep Jordan Mason for the insurance policy. Assuming it's a full PPR, of course. Thank you. BTJ, Ridley, or Adunze? Out of those three, I'm probably playing BTJ. Number 1, Adunze 2, Ridley 3. That's probably the direction I go in. Should I trade CeeDee Lamb for Debo and Metcalf? Yes, absolutely. Andrew Brown, abso-fucking-lutely yes. If someone's willing to give you Debo and Metcalf, who again, both of these wide receivers after this week will be past their bye weeks and hopefully full healthy, in comparison to CeeDee Lamb, who will have a backup quarterback for what is expected to be the rest of the season. Based on what we heard, Dak Prescott does not want to have surgery on his hamstring. Therefore, he wants it to just naturally heal or something. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know what the entire procedure is going to be going forward. But as of right now, yeah, let's lean towards making that trade and getting those receivers in return. All right, let's see here. My YouTube's about to crash. Hopefully it doesn't. Okay, it doesn't. Okay, Bacon sends in a question. Thank you, Bacon. Full PPR, who should I flex? Taysom Hill or Pollard? At that point, I think you kind of have to play Pollard. I think it's just the safer play, and I think it is the actual, probably higher scoring play of the two at the moment. Even with Will Levis there, like we know that he's going to run the ball probably somewhere between 16, 17 times. Probably catch the ball 3 to 4 times out of the backfield. 20 touches is implicated. If he falls into the end zone, it wouldn't be a surprise. So he'll probably be able to outscore him just off of yardage alone. And if yardage isn't enough, the touchdown would be able to take it over the top. But yeah, I would prefer to play Pollard there pretty comfortably. Let's see here. Angel Montero says, would you drop Jonathan Brooks for Moody? Don't want to drop anyone. I mean, who's your kicker? So are you not going to drop your kicker? Is that the... Because if you pick up Moody, then that's going to be your kicker rest of season. He's past his bye week, and he's probably 10 points per week every game rest of season. Let's see here. We had a question that came in from Gian Del Castillo, who says, need a running back, got offered Ladd, Hawkinson, Walker for Hill. So someone is going to take Hill off of your hands, and they're going to give you Walker, Ladd, and Hawkinson. If the running back need is that desperate to the extent to where, again, Walker's going to start for you. Hawkinson could be even a potential starter, and then Ladd could be that flex/wide receiver 3 on your roster, and they can all be utilized going forward, then I don't have an issue with the trade. But if you're going to make this trade and Walker's going to be the only one that plays, I'd rather go for a better running back. Jay sends in a question, says Hawkinson or Laporta? For this week, I'd rather play Hawkinson. Again, Laporta is all but forgotten at that offense. It just really is an unfortunate scenario. Who would imagine that the number 1 tight end for a season could go to the next year and his targets get cut in half, literally? Like, let me see here. Sam Laporta. Let's pull this up for reference just so that we have an actual tangible numeric kind of comprehension for it. So thus far this season, Sam Laporta, in his 8 games played, has 26 targets. That is 3.3 targets per game on average. So in the first 8 games of his 2023 rookie season, okay, just for context, that's not the first 8. Okay, here we go. In the first 8 games of last year, had 59 total targets. Okay, 26 to 59. He is literally nearly doubled the targets in comparison to last season. No, actually he is doubled, right? Is it 26 or 29? Hold on, wait a minute. Everybody stay calm. No, he's doubled it. He's outright doubled the targets. And then some. He was averaging 7.4 targets per game last season throughout the first 8 games of the year. He's just not, it's done. Like, it's Laporta's, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but it's a foregone conclusion that he's probably going to very rarely be valuable, and the only times he is when he scores touchdowns. But so for right now, yes, we'll lean towards Hawkinson. As for Chuba Hubbard or David Montgomery in a full PPR, Chuba Hubbard would only get the start if, in fact, by Sunday morning, starting at 6 a.m., they go ahead and put out a designation in Germany that Jonathan Brooks is not playing. If Jonathan Brooks is not playing, I will play Chuba. Otherwise, I will lean towards playing David Montgomery. Jay sends in a question, says, I'm currently 6-3 in a 12-man league, full PPR. 3 wide receivers in 1 flex league. We have Puka plus Dowdle for Jacobs, JSN, Laporta, and is a good trade. I don't want to trade for Laporta. I'm going to be honest here. In terms of the trade as a whole, I could see why you would make it. I just don't like the Laporta side of this thing. Let me see here. You have Josh Allen, St. Brown, Wilson, McLaurin, really solid wide receivers across the board. Mixon, Jacobs, Ferguson, Chuba, Oh, I understand. So you're trading away Jacobs, JSN, Laporta for Puka and Dowdle. Understood. Cool. 3 wide receiver league, 1 flex. Sounds good. Yeah, I'll take it. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, for sure. I'll take the deal. I thought it was the other way around. I thought you were trading for Jacobs in this scenario. The fact that you're moving away from him, well, it's not that Jacobs is being traded away. It's mainly that you're moving away from Laporta and you're getting the Puka exchange overall in return. Yes, I will take the trade. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Bruce Cowdrey sends in a question. Says, please rank and thoughts on Noah Brown, Nick Westbrook-Ikine, Van Jefferson, and Calvin Austin, full PPR. Cool. So of the available this week, the way I would have them ranked would be number 1, Noah Brown, number 2, Calvin Austin, number 3, Nick Westbrook-Ikine, number 4, Van Jefferson. That is the order in which I would have it. Now, the reason why Van Jefferson sits at the very bottom of this list is because he doesn't get much target opportunity. He'll score an occasional touchdown here and there, but again, he does not get enough opportunity in terms of yardage, receptions to be fantasy relevant in comparison to the rest on a consistent enough basis. Now, as for the next option, we went with Nick Westbrook-Ikine as the third best, mainly because, again, with Will Levis, a little bit of a sketchier overall circumstance, but he is the number 2 receiving option of this offense going forward outside of Ridley, and maybe, you never know, there may be a better connection between him and Levis. And then we have, of course, number 3, or the second best option here, would be Calvin Austin. Again, playing within the slot position, his role within the offense is pretty secure. He's going to continue to feast there, especially with the tight end position not being as heavily utilized within this offense. I mean, again, he's played well in both the games with Russell Wilson, has seen a pretty good volume of targets. Obviously not the most accurate, but enough to where he will be continuously relevant. And then, of course, Noah Brown, number 1. Again, like I was mentioning earlier, he's pretty much like a 5 catches, 50 yards kind of guy. If he scores a touchdown, we're lucky, but that's pretty much going to be the conversation. And Terry McLaurin's probably going to pull double coverage for the entirety of the day, and it's just going to be a Noah Brown game, like per usual. Ryan Chambers sends in a question. Thank you, Ryan. Says Tyrone Tracy, DK Metcalf, Ramondre Stevenson, Brian Thomas Jr. for Jacobs and Hall. I'm in a 12-team full PPR. As of right now, I think you're giving away too much for those 2 players, unless you give me more context regarding the rest of your team, regarding what you have. Because, I mean, really, giving up 4 for 2 seems like a pretty steep, price line for what you're getting in exchange here, which is, running backs that aren't as consistent as you may like. Honestly, I could see Tyrone Tracy outscoring one of those 2 in many of weeks upcoming ahead. So I probably say no until I get a little bit more context. Kevin Smith sends in a question, says, sup, Drew, in a PPR, I need 1 between Marvin Harrison, Montgomery, and Downs. Cool. Between the 3 of them, I'd probably play Downs number 1, Montgomery number 2, and Marvin Harrison number 3. Thank you. We move on to Jimbo Fisher, who says, happy birthday. Thank you very much. Best of rest. Akers, Keaton Mitchell, DeMarcado, Vidal. The best of the rest. Akers number 1, DeMarcado number 2, Keaton Mitchell number 3, and Vidal number 4, especially with Gus Edwards coming back this week. That's probably the direction I lean in. All right, let's see here. Jordan in the live chat says, trade Montgomery and JSN for Nico Collins and a half PPR, considering adding DJ Moore to the package and asking for Pollard along with Nico Collins. Thoughts? Yeah, I'd be cool with that. That works for me. Again, you have to understand that Nico Collins may not play this week, so as long as you're just looking forward to the future of the season, I'm perfectly fine with this trade overall. Dre Play says, I need help badly at wide receiver. Would you trade Jacobs plus Rico for Najee plus Cup or AJ Brown or Neighbors? Interesting. I would take the Najee Cup duo. Let me see your running back. My other running backs would be Connor, Chase, and Raheem. Yeah, I'll take the Najee and Cup duo because Connor's going to have to go on bye week here soon, and so does Chase Brown. So you'll need you'll need Najee in those instances. So yeah, I'll take Najee and Cup there. Dre plays very, very comfortably. That'd be a great trade. Let's see here. Mr. Jenkins, Tyrone Jenkins says, I need 3 in a full PPR. We have Hopkins, we have McConkey, we have Waddle, we have Jennings, and we have Downs. Okay, in a full PPR, the order in which I would play it is the following. Number 1 would be Downs. Number 2 would be Hopkins. Number 3 would be McConkey. 4 Waddle, 5 Jennings. Thank you. We move on to a question that comes in from Fantasy Forecast, who says, having bad luck, what moves should I make? Jalen Hurts is my quarterback. Kyron Williams is my running back with Kenneth Walker, Chase Brown, Lamb, BTJ, AJ Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, Waddle, Bowers. I'm 6-3 in a full PPR. Should I get rid of BTJ and Lamb? I don't mind the idea of getting rid of BTJ and Lamb as long as you are getting proper return on the overall value of the player. Now, as of right now, there's going to be a situation with trade Lamb and BTJ. Yeah, you're good. I understand what you meant. So BTJ, his overall fantasy playoff schedule, I hate. I really do not like the overall potential there. So anytime I'm able to get out of BTJ prior to the fantasy playoffs, I'm willing to do so, especially considering you have a 6-3 record. You're all but almost guaranteed to make the fantasy playoffs. You pretty much just need to win, like, let's say 2 of the next 5 games, 2 of the next, that'd basically be it. And I think that's a pretty easy circumstance considering your current win record, where you're winning 2 out of every 3. You just need to win, 1 out of every 3 in the next couple instances. But looking at the long term, if you can move on BTJ and Lamb and get somebody else in return at wide receiver to kind of fill in. Again, I'm trying to get Neighbors right now if you can. I'd also be in the interest of trying to go after Nico Collins, maybe even buying low on guys like Tyreek Hill, AJ Browns of the world. Those are the kind of players that I'd be 100% interested in potentially going after if possible. Vu in the chat says half PPR Cade Otton or Taysom Hill. Thanks. Vu, I'm going to play Cade Otton there. He's been far too good as of late. Shoes Foe says, what's good, Andrew? Hope all is well. It is. Thank you very much. Full PPR. Who are we sitting this week? Dowdle or Ridley in the flex? Appreciate you. Man, both of them are really tough to start, in my opinion, this week. But if I was to trust one of the two, I'd probably rather trust Dowdle and hope that he catches the ball 5 times out of the backfield. And he's a check down monster within the week. Justin S says, what's up? What's up to you as well, Justin? Says, I have AJ Brown, Neighbors, Jacob. There we go. There's my YouTube crashing. What a classic. All right, let's see here. All right, so let's get back to it. So he said, I have AJ Brown, Neighbors, Jacoby, Downs. I was offered Debo for McLaurin. Thoughts? Yeah, cool. I mean, again, I think in terms of rest of season value, they're very comparable in terms of their potential upside and production. I don't mind having Debo in this scenario instead of McLaurin, but I actually want to look at the 49ers schedule for the fantasy playoffs because that's really what I'm just kind of prepping towards. They take on the Rams, the Miami Dolphins, and the Detroit Lions. I will take very happily Debo Samuel there in this scenario. Now, let me look at the Washington Commanders schedule. And let's compare him really quickly. Commanders have New Orleans, Philly, Atlanta. I mean, that's arguably just as good. But yes, I will comfortably, as of right now, take Debo in this scenario. Thank you. But if you want to keep McLaurin, I don't have an issue with it. I think, again, they're very much so similarly valued in my mind rest of season. Appreciate it. All right, we had a question that comes in from Mo Money, who says, in a 10-team PPR, we have Joe Burrow at quarterback. Running backs are Jonathan Taylor, Jacobs, Montgomery, Mason. My wide receivers are Lamb, Tyreek, Puka, Adams, Devontae, Hopkins, Deontay. Tight end is Ingram and Hawkinson. Should I make any moves? Trade for Saquon. If you're going to trade for Saquon, yes. I mean, anytime you can trade for a top 3 running back rest of season, you probably should. So as to what it's going to require, obviously it's very much so dependent on what they need in return. I would assume that the team that you're going to trade Saquon or try to get Saquon off of is going to require a running back. So you could pretty much all but guarantee that JT, Jacobs, or Montgomery have to go. I would assume out of those 3, again, I don't know which one of the 3 they want, but whichever one they want, they can have. And then on top of it, you're going to have to give another piece, which probably will have to be like a Devontae Adams level player, or maybe even D-Hop. Either one of the 2, I'd give it. And I'd take Saquon and I'd run to the hills. Thank you. Especially in a 10-team league, like you can't start all these studs anyway, so you might as well just consolidate and just get your one stud running back rest of the way. Fantasy Forecast says, I just traded my Neighbors for Nico. Understood. Okay, so that definitely helps. So if those players are off the market, then you know what's funny? I'd actually be willing to, let me go and pull up the list of receivers really quickly. Okay, so if I'm looking at wide receivers across the board, names that I'd be willing to go after, right? If Neighbors and Nico are already gone. Again, Kups, Amon-Ra, Garrett Wilson, Tyreek Hill, Puka Nacua, AJ Brown, Debo Samuel, Terry McLaurin, Drake London. Those are the kind of players that I'd be willing to move Lamb and or the potential of, goodness gracious, BTJ for. Now, BTJ will probably not get you that kind of level of player. Maybe BTJ can get you a Devontae Adams. Maybe BTJ can get you a George Pickens. Perhaps a DeAndre Hopkins in exchange. Those kind of players could be within the realm in which you're very much so interested in swapping them off for. I think that could work. So hopefully that kind of gives you a broader spectrum of names that you can go after theoretically. All right, let's see here. We had a question from Ryan Chambers who says, sorry, I have Hall and Jacobs. I'm 4-5. Okay, Ryan, let me see what your question is in the chat and then I can go ahead and... So okay, so you have Hall and Jacobs. You would be trading for Tyrone Tracy, DK Metcalf, Ramondre Stevenson, and Brian Thomas Jr. So the question is, can all 4 of those players immediately start for you? are they going to make an immediate impact? If the answer is yes, to where you need that much depth at wide receiver to be able to kind of survive for the rest of the season, then yes, you'd make the trade. But understand that, again, BTJ this week, not a great wide receiver play because he has Mac Jones. I mean, again, he's still startable, but not a great play. DK Metcalf's on a bye. And then, of course, Tyron Tracy and Ramondre, we have no issue with their top 24. So really, it's just like if you're in need of wide receiver for this week to capture a victory this week, it's not a great move. But for rest of season, I think it's a solid move and probably one that I would absolutely make in order to get the 4 players instead of just, the 2 that you would, theoretically have rest of the way. Rogo sends in a follow-up, says, is my team set up correctly? Standard half PPR. We have Matthew or Baker. Between the 2 of them, again, I could go with either of the 2 in terms of a potential start. I think I have them ranked back to back. Do I not? Let me see here. I have Baker at number 8. I have Matthew Stafford at number 9. They're both tier 3 quarterbacks. Do I have a preference? No, but Baker's just been too good for me to bench him. If you just don't want to deal with the overall Baker situation, because again, he plays the 49ers, then you can just play Matthew Stafford. I think they're very similarly valued, and they have both they can both either score 2 to 3 touchdowns. As to who has more upside, I would assume because of the the talent that surrounds Stafford, he's more capable, but he also has the ability to, get yoinked by his running game, which obviously is a threat. So either way, I think they're very closely valued. As of right now, I don't mind the idea of starting Stafford though. If you didn't feel comfortable playing Baker. Now, next question. You had Debo, you have Devontae Smith, you have Gibbs, you have Swift, you have Otton, you have David Montgomery. Okay. So as for in your scenario, I would honestly play, let's see here. If Debo is out, Sutton in. Okay, so this is the way you would go about it. So let me go ahead and let me go find my half PPR wide receivers. Okay, so that's where I have, okay. So this is what I'm thinking. Josh Downs is going to play over Devontae Smith. Debo Samuel would be your starting wide receiver. And in the event that Debo Samuel cannot play, then you would pivot to playing Devontae Smith. Cool? Cool. That's the way I go about it, Rogo. Thank you. Awesome person sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR rest of season, Hall, Walker, Kyron, Montgomery. Cool. If I was to order them and rank them full PPR rest of season, number 1 would be Kyron. Number 2 would be Hall. Number 3 would be Walker. Number 4 would be Montgomery. That's the way I have it. Rest of season value. Thank you. Lana sends in a question. Says, see the chat for questions. Sounds good, Lana. Thank you. All right. Let's see if I can find your question. There it is. It says, hi, Andrew. Tracy or Chase Brown rest of season? Very good question. Considering the volume of opportunity that Chase Brown was exposed to last night within the receiving game, let me actually, what was the actual number? Was it 9 receptions last night? What was the actual number? Let's see here. 9 receptions on 11 targets. That is something that is extremely rare, and you would assume that the number would go down in the future. But even in the case, both of these running backs, Tracy and Chase Brown, are going to they're both going to get a bye week upcoming, but if I was to pick which one I prefer rest of the season, it would be Chase Brown. The exposure to opportunity within the receiving game, on top of him being the guaranteed early down and goal line back, even if there are sprinkles of 5 to 6 attempts or touches for Herbert rest of season, it's nothing that is going to, in my opinion, affect Chase Brown negatively enough to where I am lowering his ranking in comparison. Chase Brown was ridiculous last night. I mean, again, 9 receptions on 11 targets. Like literally the first play of the game was a dump off, and they designed it for that entire purpose. So he's too talented at the moment. So yeah, that's what I would prefer. Now, as for your next question, also rank these players, wide receivers, rest of the season: Flowers, BTJ, Marvin Harrison, Downs, Tillman, full PPR. Cool. In terms of rest of season rankings, the way I have them kind of set up in my mind, full PPR is the following. Again, this is under the assumption that we have a full healthy Trevor Lawrence for the rest of the season, and this current him missing this week is only a one week deal. Because if it ends up being a multi-week situation, I would lessen the overall ranking of BTJ probably to either second to last or last place out of the group. So for right now, Flowers is number 1, BTJ is number 2. Probably going Tillman 3, Downs 4, Marvin Harrison 5. In the event that BTJ does not have Trevor Lawrence for multiple weeks, it would go BTJ probably right ahead of Marvin, like at 5th, something like that, or 4th, excuse me. So then it would go Flowers, Tillman, Downs, BTJ, Marvin Harrison. In the event that we didn't know what the overall expectation of Lawrence's missing, time to be. Frosty says, yeah, you're known. These allegations are crazy, Frosty. These allegations are crazy, brother. Let's see here. Arlen says, I have Kyler Murray, Saquon, Kenneth Walker, Metcalf, Kupp, Marvin Harrison, George Kittle, Chase Brown, Austin Eckler. Should I trade Chase Brown and Metcalf for Debo and Jaden Daniels? Chase Brown and Metcalf for Debo and Jaden Daniels. You have Kyler, you have Saquon, you have Kenneth Walker. So considering the depth that you have across the board here, I do not mind the trade. And it's only because you have this kind of quality depth that you can make a trade of this caliber. Chris Rosado says, is Jaden Reed a hold or trade? I think you meant or trade. I have Kupp, Neighbors, and Evans. I would hold. Unless you can get, again, you would only trade him for a running back, right? Because you already have Kupp, Neighbors, and Evans. So for right now, I would only assume that he's probably a trade for a running back or a tight end or a quarterback. If you can get somebody that is going to be a significant upgrade to your team, then yeah, I don't mind making that move. But otherwise, why do I need to move on from him? Especially with Neighbors having an upcoming bye week, Evans missing because he has an upcoming bye week and an injury. I think Jaden Reed's probably somebody that you hold just to make sure that you have wide receiver depth to get to the playoffs. Otherwise, yeah, you would only move him for alternative positions. You wouldn't be trading Reed for another receiver, theoretically. Let's see here. Jake Izzo says, Andrew, I'm currently 8-1 in first place. Do I trade J.K. Dobbins for Mike Evans? Depends on what your running backs look like. If J.K. Dobbins doesn't even start for your team and you're literally just looking to prepare for the fantasy playoffs and or weeks 13 and beyond, I would say sure, but it depends on what your running back depth, again, looks like. If this is your third best running back and you're going to be pretty much naked and there's upcoming bye weeks or an injury that could be implicated, you'd pretty much screw yourself by making this move. Otherwise, again, if he doesn't play and he's your fourth RB, then at that point, you make that move. And the underdog plays for this weekend, yeah. So earlier today, in regards to the Hidden Gems video, these are the two overall slips or entries that I suggested. This is the first one. Higher on passing touchdowns from both Brock Purdy and Sam Darnold, and an anytime touchdown rushing or receiving from Kyren Williams. And then the other play was higher on receptions for Downs, Neighbors, and Kelsey. I've adjusted the overall lines in order to take it at the lowest overall numbers so that I can ensure that it overall hits within this situation. Cool. Thank you. Appreciate it. Ravens defense sucks. Chase Brown's numbers inflated. I mean, their pass defense is terrible, but their run stop defense was still good all season long. They've been incredible. And still they allowed 40 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. So the guy was still able to score himself 10 fantasy points on the ground. That in itself is fantastic. The receiving upside going forward, again, it's very much so dependent on, again, what the defense gives you or the quarterback and, the offensive coordinator's tendencies to get their running backs implicated within the receiving game. Like I've mentioned in the past, the Cincinnati Bengals, going back to 2023, 2022, 2021, 2020, Joe Mixon was averaging 5 receptions per game in that offense. Thus far this season, prior to Zach Moss's injury, the backfield was on average getting 6 targets and 5 receptions per game. So now that all of that workload is going in the direction of Chase Brown, I mean, it's not a matter of matchup purely. It's a matter of the overall tendencies of the offense. I've done the statistics for it. If you go back to my off-season, literally any off-season strength of schedule running back video, you can go to this year's with Derrick Henry on it. You can go to last year's. You can go to the year before. I have done extensive research and actual number crunching on whether a matchup inflates or deflates a receiving back's numbers out of receiving statistics. They are not correlated at all. Receiving statistics is purely a 100% measure of offensive coordinator, running back receiving upside, and skill, and additionally the quarterback tendencies. It has nothing to do with matchups. I have done multiple years of research on the fact. Prove me otherwise. Thank you. Let's see here. We had a question that came in from, let's see here. We had a couple questions that I missed here. So after Lana, we had Spencer Goldberg, who says, hi, PPR. Start 2, Dell, Thomas Jr., Mooney, Downs. That's a really good question. As of right now, I'll probably, so in the event that Nico Collins is active, you're playing Mooney and Downs. In the event that he's inactive, you would play Mooney and Dell. Thank you. All right. Terp sends in a question. Terp, where is your question? Let's see here. All right, I see it. Terp says, greetings, my dude. I got Algier and Pure Salt in the flex right now. Okay. Other options are TJ Hawkinson, Leggett, and Ray Davis. Cool. I would rather play TJ Hawkinson and Leggett over Algier and Pearsall this weekend. Thank you. Moving on to a question from Jimbo Fisher, who says, Green Bay or Steelers rest of the year? Let's see here. Westbrook, Ikine, Tolbert in week 10. I'd rather play Jalen Tolbert for the Cowboys, and I'd rather have the Steelers in terms of their defense rest of season. I think that's what you're asking, right? Thank you. Fox with a PH says in the question, says trade Evans and Ramondre for Connor. Is that a good move? I don't know if that's entirely a great move. Look, like Connor's got a really good strength of schedule for the back end of the year, but so does Evans. I would even imagine to say that Evans, especially if it's a full PPR, will score more points per game than Connor in that span of time. So I think you'd be giving up a little bit too much in this scenario. Now, if you tell me, hey, listen, Evans is never going to play for me, I have 5 better receivers, then okay, we make the move. But otherwise, no. Dynasty 39 has sent in a question. It says, would you trade Ladd and Bowers for A.J. Brown? I have Ferguson and Hawkinson. Yes, I would make that trade immediately. Absolutely. Give me A.J. Brown rest of the season. Thank you. We move on to a question from Michael, who says, trade Kyler and Montgomery for either Puka or Mixon. Kyler and Montgomery for Puka or Mixon. Yeah, either of the two. I don't care. Honestly, if it's me, it's just a matter of whether or not you have enough running back depth. Because of Puka's knee injury and the potential re-aggravation of it, I'm always worried about that. I'd probably just rather take Mixon and run to the hills in that scenario. Thank you. Appreciate it. Chris Rosado says, expectations for Christian McCaffrey this week. Yeah, I kind of explained it last night. We're going to get one of two Christian McCaffreys. We're going to get the Christian McCaffrey that either plays 60 to 70% of the snaps, and in which he plays, let's say in a half PPR, he plays and scores somewhere between 12 to 13 fantasy points. Maybe 13 and a half if we're lucky. If he plays 60 to 70% of the snaps. Now, in the event that he plays actually 85 to 95% of the snaps, we're going to get a 20-point McCaffrey. Very much so dependent on what kind of overall usage, if Shanahan is going to unleash him upon the league or whether they're going to slowly integrate him. Again, we're not 100% certain as to which one of those two is going to take place, but either way, we're starting him because he has immediate value within this offense. How do you feel about a kicker, Romo, for the Vikings this week against Jacksonville? I haven't done enough research on it. I couldn't even tell you. I know who you're talking about because I saw the name in the overall transaction trends for Yahoo, and I was like, look at this name. He's like 2 last names, and I was like, never heard of him. So Zane Gonzalez, at least I've heard of. He's taking over Cyber's job. I know because he used to be the kicker for the Arizona Cardinals in the past. I've never even heard of this guy. I'd have to go do a little bit of research on him. Wouldn't surprise me if he scored 10 points because they're going to blow out the Jacksonville Jaguars, right? So whether it's PATs or free field goals from the 30-yard line chip shot, it wouldn't surprise me if he scores. But yeah, I don't know anything about him. I haven't done enough research. Still early in the week. It's still only Friday night. We still got many of hours in which I'm going to go sleepless trying to figure out what I'm doing with all these rankings. Evo Ed says 2 wide receivers, 1 flex, Hopkins, DJ Moore, Ridley, Jennings, Amari, Allen. Cool. Of those available, if we're starting 3 players, 2 wide receivers and 1 flex, Hopkins plays, Amari Cooper plays, Juwan Jennings plays. Thank you. Let's see here. We had Yeet. Says, would you trade Montgomery and Ladd for Kamara? Sorry, didn't put my question with the donation. You're good, man. I got it. I would trade Montgomery and Ladd for Kamara. I would. Yes, absolutely. Especially if it's a full PPR, I would. Thank you. Justin M says in a full PPR, pick 2. Ridley, Addison, Jennings, DJ Moore. Not playing Ridley. I'm playing Jennings and DJ Moore, honestly. Those are the 2 that I prefer. Now, I could be convinced to play Addison over DJ Moore because of what DJ Moore has been incapable of accomplishing as of late. So if you're really trying to just avoid any sort of, man, do I play Addison over DJ? No, I don't. I'm going to play DJ Moore and Jennings. That's the way that I'd go about it. Marcus says, Dell came up questionable today. You worried? No, I'm okay with it. He'll be fine. Again, I'm expecting him to play. As for Nico Collins, that is the complete random. I have no idea. I don't know if they're going to pull a Puka on us or if they're going to just actually hold him out outright. Jake Izzo says, hey, Andrew, do you think Amon-Ra will eventually go back to being a 25-point-per-game guy? Or are the Lions' run game just too much? It's not even that the run game is too much. It's that the defenses that they play are not competitive enough to prevent them from running the ball. So in that overall circumstance, is he going to go back to scoring 25 points per game? Probably not consistently. This season, in a PPR, has scored over 20 points 4 times. 4 times in 8 games? Let's see what he did in last season, the first 8 games. First 8 games of last season, he went over 20 points 3 times. So, like, very similar. I mean, yes, he had more upside performances last year. He had like 2 games of 30 points in the first 8 weeks, which obviously is a big difference maker. But, like, in the long run, I still think he's played incredibly well. I'm not too worried about it. I think he's fine. Like, in the long run, it's purely just a matter of, like, are they going to be in more competitive matchups in which, it'll force their offense to have to throw the ball. Because, again, they're the only team in the league that has a top 5 offense and defense. But considering their upcoming schedule of taking on teams like Green Bay, Buffalo, Chicago, San Francisco in the final 4 games of the season, Green Bay, Buffalo, Chicago, San Francisco, they've always had troubles with Chicago, especially at Chicago. And then, of course, the other 3 games, Buffalo, Green Bay, and San Francisco, those are all playoff teams. Should be competitive, should be non-weather games, should be fun. So hopefully, by the end of the year, to answer your question, thank you. All right, let's see here. Peace Dogs. Okay, he's talking to somebody else. Okay, took care of that. Zinc says, Andrew, got any interesting parlays this week? I got lucky and made 2 50-cent parlays and made $50. Congratulations. Don't really have any quote-unquote interesting ones. The last night I almost hit one where I had Jamar Chase 2 touchdowns and Mark Andrews 2 touchdowns. Unfortunately, Mark Andrews could not deliver on that front, but he was close. But yeah, nothing super interesting in which we're turning 50 cents into $50. That's a crazy one. Let's see here. Patch51 says pick 2 in a PPR: Stevenson, Ridley, Bucky, Etienne, Addison, and Leggett. I'd probably just play Stevenson, and probably at that point afterward, it's probably like Stevenson and Addison right there. Page 51, excuse me. Outlook on Kyler rest of year. Their fantasy playoff schedule is really, really, really strong. So, should be fun. Mr. Burns says Murray or Goff, 4-point per passing touchdown league. I'd rather just play Goff against Houston than have to worry about what Kyler can potentially produce against the Jets. So, yeah, I'd probably just roll with Goff there. Full PPR says Brandon. Pick 1 wide receiver, 1 running back. Wandell or Jennings. And Montgomery or Hubbard. As of right now, it's Jennings and Montgomery. If we get some sort of confirmation that on Sunday morning in Germany, Jonathan Brooks is inactive, at that point, we'd play Hubbard over Montgomery. Thank you. Let's see here. Tony Lopez says, will Flacco be decent enough this week in the Superflex? I mean, he plays against a really tough defense. So will he be decent? We're hoping so. Can I guarantee it? No. I don't even have him ranked in my top 17. So I'm not so confident on the overall situation. Is Christian McCaffrey expected to score less than 10 points in week 10? Or is that more than? I don't know. I'm expecting him to score more than 10 points, yes. I'm expecting him to score more than 12.5 points minimum in a half PPR, full PPR setting. Reese says Hawkinson or Ferguson this week, rest of season, full PPR. I mean, considering we don't have Dak Prescott, it's very difficult to say what we'll see out of Cooper Rush with Ferguson. For right now, I'm going to lean towards Hawkinson there as of the current moment. I think it's just safer to go down that road. Thank you. Football says in a full PPR, Lamar has a week 14 bye. That's my playoff game. Okay, well, you need to tell your commissioner to wake the fuck up, because that is a terrible decision. You should not be playing in the playoffs in week 14. Every year in the playoffs, there are 6 teams on bye. Please tell your commissioner to change it. If your commissioner does not change it now, you got to quit the league, because that's just BS. Anyway, if you have to play your first playoff game without Lamar, who is the replacement? Let me look at week 14 and let me see what quarterbacks you have. So you have, and I quote, Rodgers, Daniel Jones, Russell, Herbert, Flacco, Tua, Caleb Williams. Okay. So I'm not playing Tua. I am... Let's see. Where's Flacco? Where's the Colts at that point? Colts are on bye, so Flacco's not available either. You have who else here? Aaron Rodgers, Daniel Jones. Let's see if Daniel Jones' schedule looks any good. New York Giants versus the Saints. That's probably the play. Russell Wilson, Justin Herbert. Herbert plays against the Chiefs. I'm not interested in that. Russell Wilson versus the Browns. Not interested. Yeah. So of the available players, not even joking, unironically, your best play is probably Daniel Jones in that week. Let's see here. GC123 says, I have Daniels, so I traded Allen and Mooney for Garrett Wilson. Congratulations. That's fantastic. Good trade. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great trade. Full PPR league, Bucky, Hunter, Evan Ingram, Jennings. Yeah, I'll play all three of those receiving options. Hunter Henry, Evan Ingram, and Jennings. Those would be the three that I play. Let's see here. Marcus Deans says, drop Harrison or Jennings for Tillman or hold. Honestly, yes, I'd be willing. I mean, at this point, you probably hold on to Harrison, but I'd be willing to drop Jennings for Tillman, yes. Tony Lopez says, could you review my team if I type it out here? Wondering your thoughts? Yeah, go for it. Bear says, PPR, Connor, or Puka? I'd rather play Puka this week. Thank you. Straw sends in a question, says, Stroud, Tua, Stafford, or Rodgers this week? Stafford is the highest rank that I have. Thank you. Tillman's schedule for the rest of the season is rough. Yeah, even if it's rough, Jameis Winston throws the ball 90% of the time. Like, it's just not going to be, it's not going to be a running offense. It's not going to be at all. Like, when you look at the overall offensive shift already from where we've seen what Deshaun Watson was doing as to what is the overall usage of Jameis Winston and the passing in the last couple weeks, they're just throwing the ball significantly more. It's going to turn into just a pure pass-heavy attack. And Tillman, of course, is implicated to be the number one on the team. Terp says, what's your thoughts on the Broncos +8? Listen, Terp, you asked me about the Miami Dolphins and the Arizona Cardinals a couple weeks back, and I told you that there's no way that the Arizona Cardinals are going to be able to compete, and they beat them. So I don't know if I'm actually the right person to ask in this scenario. If London and Pitts are injured this week, is Mooney and McLeod a good option? I mean, it depends. If London misses this game, then sure, McLeod is a good option. Otherwise, no. And Mooney's always a good option regardless of whether or not they're injured. Hermit says, Superflex half PPR. I need help. Lost Dak. Need Flacco or Mac Jones. I'd rather play Flacco this week. Less turnovers, potentially. Let's see here. Twisted Piper says, in a pick three in a Superflex full PPR, Adams, Debo, Drake, London, and Eckler. Yeah, I'll play all three of the receivers. Give me London, give me Debo, and give me Adams. For sure. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, so again, we've been here for about an hour 15. Typically, I like to have my streams on a daily basis for like an hour, hour and a half. So we'll probably answer a couple more questions here. I'm waiting to see where Tony Lopez's team is, and once that kind of rolls in, I'll answer a couple more questions, and then we'll be out. Again, I appreciate y'all coming through. I'll be back tomorrow afternoon starting at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and then I'll be back on Sunday morning. Keep in mind, again, it's either going to be at 6 a.m. Sunday morning PST or 7 a.m. I don't know which way I'm going to go. I'll figure it out by the time I get to tomorrow. But one of those two times, early in the morning, Sunday morning, like we always do, we'll have updated rankings on screen, answering questions, etc. Answering a couple more questions here tonight, and then I'm on my way. Thank you. Appreciate you all. All right, here we go. Final couple questions. Johnny38 says, in a half PPR, start Khalil Shakir or DJ Moore. I'd rather play Shakir. Thank you. Moving on to Tony Lopez. Says, Superflex full PPR. We have Love, Flacco, CD, BTJ, Mixon, K9, Njoku, Tracy, Olave, Bucky, Quentin Johnston, Pearsall, Mac Jones. Okay, so upcoming, you're going to have to... Okay, so you're starting Flacco and Mac Jones this week, huh? That's pretty rough, Tony. I'm going to say that's pretty rough. In terms of future moves, I mean, really, at this point, it's like Olave's got to be probably traded because I don't trust him rest of the way. And maybe you can find somebody to manipulate to take him off of your hands. But like BTJ, Olave, CeeDee Lamb, those are the guys that I'm looking to move. If you can, again, trade away a CeeDee Lamb for a better wide receiver in terms of like a top 10 option, like the guys that I have ranked in my top 10s typically, if somehow, some way somebody's willing to take CeeDee Lamb off your hands for that, because they believe Dak Prescott's going to come back before the end of the fantasy playoffs, then you make that move. BTJ is also another sell. I was mentioning like I might be willing to go after guys like Pickens or DK or, you know, some guys at that middle of the pack kind of range, because I don't know what the overall kind of timeline of Trevor Lawrence injury is going to be. But that would be the immediate thought. Otherwise, everything else on the team is relatively strong. You can't really upgrade a quarterback because, again, you know, in a super flex, that's very difficult to accomplish unless you are giving away a quarterback and another piece. So for right now, wide receiver would be the one that I'm trying to improve and obviously get out of these injured players / injured scenarios. Let's see here. Reese says, hey, Andrew, what moves should I make if I start 7 weekly? We have Burrow, Henry, Hill, Amon-Ra, Neighbors, Cup. Okay, yeah. So considering this scenario, if you start 7, and you're only starting 2 wide receivers and 1 flex, you have too many good wide receivers. So Hill, Amon-Ra, Neighbors, and Kupp don't need to all be on one team. Neither does Mooney. So really, we're just looking to potentially. I mean, Burrow, you can't improve upon technically. You have Henry as your RB1. Your RB2 is Kenneth Walker. Really, the only thing that I'd look to do is maybe take Kenneth Walker plus, for example, a Kupp and go get Saquon Barkley. That's what I would do, legitimately, because you can afford to do so. That's what my initial thought is. Otherwise, you can take, K9 and somebody else and go after, you know what I mean? Like you can just pick your shot and just go for it. As long as they're reciprocate, they reciprocate like the idea of like, okay, you know what? I need a little bit of depth. I need a wide receiver and a running back. This will work for me. Like as long as it works for their situation, going after a top tier running back or wide receiver definitely can be accomplished. So you can give away Kupp and Mooney and maybe go after a more valuable receiving option, which again, there aren't going to be very many of, but certainly can do 2-for-1s in order to accomplish that. All right, guys, that's where I'm going to cover it. I appreciate y'all. I'll be back tomorrow. Again, if you haven't checked out Hidden Gems, this is available. If you guys want rankings every Thursday, Sunday, unlimited questions answered, you can check out the Patreon. Links down in the description. Otherwise, of course, you can check out Underdog. Signing up using code Andrew. We'll get you those rankings every Sunday morning. All you got to do is make that first-time deposit, minimum of $10 using the code Andrew, and you're good to go. I appreciate y'all. I'm cueing the music. Have a great rest of your wonderful nights on this beautiful Friday. And until tomorrow, I'll see you guys. Peace.